He pulled up like any other calm evening. Then, with one simple sentence, he turned everything I thought I knew about my life inside out. What he said didn't ruin us. It made me see us differently. Before we begin, tell me, which city are you watching from tonight? I love knowing where you are when we share these quieter moments. I remember the rain first. Not the polite drizzle that glosses the street, but a heavy, patient rain that seems to sit on the world like a handwritten apology. It had been one of those weeks where time felt thin. Work emails that kept coming after midnight. A sink that wouldn't stop dripping. And the kind of small, persistent loneliness that shows up even when you're not alone. I was 45, tired in ways that coffee couldn't fix. And I'd left the house later than I meant to. Had meant to get to the grocery store. Meant to pick up a prescription. Meant to pretend everything was all right. The car gave a soft, offended cough halfway down the hill. The engine light blinked like a small, embarrassed creature. I tried to coax it, whispered to the steering wheel like it was a wayward cat, but it wouldn't respond. There I was in a fluorescent puddle of street light, the windshield beaded with rain, feeling absurdly exposed. I called Daniel, my husband, who was out of town on a business trip. He told me to call a towel, but with the rain and the hour, I felt sudden panic at the thought of sitting on the shoulder in the dark. Henry pulled up like he always did in family crisis, with the quiet of someone who's been taught to fix what he can and say nothing when he can't. He's my husband's brother, a steady presence at family dinners, the kind of man who brings a six-pack and a casserole without asking if anyone wanted him to. He slowed to a stop in the next lane, lights reflecting in puddles, and gave me that small wave of someone asking permission before entering a private place. He opened the door as if he'd been there since I'd pulled in, his jacket already damp with rain, his hands large and careful. He smelled of rain and cedar, the kind of smell that pulls a room into focus. He didn't ask me if I needed a ride. He just said, "Get in, Emily." The way you tell a child to put on their coat, the way you tell someone you care about that you'll do the small, ordinary thing you can to help. In the car, the heater hummed to life. The radio played something old, a song that felt like a memory of somewhere else. The city blurred past in streaks of neon and wet asphalt. Henry drove slowly, which calmed me more than I expected. We traded the usual small talk, the weather, the council's pothole promises, how Daniel was doing. But his hand stayed steady, and there was a quiet I'd never learned to interpret between us. Then he cleared his throat, and I realized the night had shifted. He's not a man of many speeches. If you want to know Henry, you watch him do the work, and you listen between the things he doesn't say. His voice was different, softer, not quite asked for. "There's something I need to tell you," he said, and I felt that little lurch you get when a boat takes a wave from the side. My first thought was practical. Had he found something wrong with the car? Had he brought a bill? But this wasn't about a bill. The streetlights pulled on his knuckles where they gripped the wheel. "I went up into the attic the other day," he said, helping Daniel sort through Dad's things. "There was a box. I found a letter." I wanted to laugh because how many times in the movies does someone find the right letter, open it and everything changes? But his mouth pressed into a line like someone holding a memory carefully. He continued. "It was addressed to Daniel. Handwriting I recognized. I didn't mean to read it. It was there. I read it. A flush of heat moved across me. Of all the private parts of my life, my written wishes, my late-night drafts of leaving and staying, I'd never imagined anyone else would read them. Those letters were a place I let the raw parts of myself show. I thought, how could Henry have read into that? How long had he held that knowledge? "I'm not proud of it," he said. "I should have handed it to him. Kept it. I thought I was protecting you. I thought I was protecting him." He laughed once without joy. I was protecting myself from the responsibility of doing the right thing. The car slid into a quieter street. The diner's neon owned a tired lighthouse on the corner. He turned the engine off and still didn't meet my eyes. Then he swallowed. Then my doctor called. The scans showed something. It may be operable. It may not. They want more tests. I don't want to talk about prognosis. I want to tell you the truth. The night rearranged itself. The shock wasn't just the secret keeping. It was the sudden vulnerability in a man who had always seemed like a fixture. Here was a brother, the kind of man who'd shown up with hardware and casseroles, telling me that his world had a fracture in it. The way he said it, plain, unadored, hit me in my chest. I thought of Daniel, my husband, hardworking, stubborn, a man who taught me how to steady a hammer when we put up shelves in our first apartment. I thought of family as a well-constructed house with weathered shingles, and I imagined Henry's news like a leak we all pretended not to see. You should have told him, I said before I knew I was going to say it, not accusing but a fact like the rain. You should have given him the letter. He deserved to decide. Henry looked at me then, and the look was what made me start to cry. Not the sadness, but the relief that let the sadness come unbidden. I know, he said. That's why I'm telling you now. I can't hold it anymore. Emily, if I'm asking for anything, it's for you to help me be honest. Help me be the brother he needs. Help me do the hard thing. There it was, the unexpected hinge. He wasn't coming to me with something to hide because he wanted me. He was coming to me because he trusted me to be the person who would help him set it right. He was asking me to be an ally to my husband, to them both. It wasn't about secrets to keep. It was about a wrong that could be mended. We pulled into the diner because that's what people do when the rain is heavy and their insides demand light. The place smelled of coffee and lemon cleaner, and the booth by the window smelled like memory. Henry ordered tea and left his jacket on the back of the seat like he planned to come back to it. We sat across from each other, two adults who had spent decades in the same orbit, but hadn't always known each other's constellations. He told me about the attic in slow, careful sentences, about boxes of photographs, about a shoe box with a brittle string around it, about the letter folded more times than was necessary, as if it had been practiced opening and closing like a small ritual. He told me he had feared the consequences of telling Daniel, the argument, the hurt, the possibility of pulling apart what keeps brothers tethered. But then he'd gone to the doctor, and everything the doctor said shifted his priorities. I realized, he said, that secrets don't protect people. They protect us from responsibility. By the time he finished talking, the rain had stopped. Outside, the world looked washed clean. Even the cars seemed quieter. I felt the weight of what he told me, but also a lightness unexpected, the brave, awful relief of a truth finally said. There was something tender in that relief. Not a romantic tenderness, but the kind that is softer than loyalty. A respect formed from years of seeing someone's bones and choosing to stand with them anyhow. He had come to me because I was family in a way that asked nothing of him and everything of me. He trusted me to be steady. What do you want me to do? I asked him. The question was practical and terrible at once. He reached across the table and placed his hand near mine, close enough that I could feel the warmth left in the porcelain from his teacup. Tell Daniel. Help me tell him the right way. If I have to face this, I don't want secrets between us. I want to put things back where they belong. If they can be put back. I thought of the letter folded in the attic, of the things unsaved between husbands and brothers and women who keep house and hope. I thought of the long haul of marriage, how it requires repair work the way an old house does. In the quiet that followed, I realized the evening had not been about what could have been imagined in a Welder telling. It was about the small, steady bravery of two people choosing honesty over silence. When we left the diner, the sky had a clean, brutal blue. The kind of blue that makes you squint as if the world were newly lit. Henry drove me home slowly, and in the warmth of the car, I felt an odd gratitude for the rain that had stalled me on the hill. It had brought him, it had made him tell me. At my doorstep I paused, the house a familiar silhouette against the night. I thought of Daniel's laugh when he made his coffee too strong, of the crooked frame in the hallway that had a picture of us from our first trip. I thought of what telling would do, how it might sting, how it might heal, how life would rearrange itself in response. Henry said simply, "I'm sorry I kept it." There were no grand promises, only that small sentence, true and sharp. He got back into his car and drove away, tail lights disappearing like a small remonstrant punctuation mark. I stood a long time on my step, the night pressing around me, thinking that shock can arrive as a sentence or as an ambulance, something sudden that asks you to become larger than you were 5 minutes ago. I pushed open the door and went inside, the house smelling like lemon cleaner and old books. I made tea because it's what I do when the world asks me to think. And as I sat down at the kitchen table, letter in my mind like a folded map, I realized the story was only beginning. There are decisions to make, conversations to have, and a brother who had chosen to be honest at last. I didn't know yet if the honesty would save us or complicate us, but I knew this. I had been asked in the middle of a rainy night to be brave on behalf of someone else. That invitation is a strange sacred thing. The rest of the night passed in small actions, calling Daniel to tell him I'd need him to answer his phone when he could, checking the porch light, touching the frame on the wall. I slept with the window cracked slightly, as if letting the world witness the turning of things, and when I closed my eyes, Henry's words, "I can't hold it anymore," kept echoing, not his accusation but as a beginning. The next morning dawned with a kind of brittle clarity. The rain had left the world scrubbed clean, the pavement shiny under the soft light of an early sun. I made coffee and stood at the kitchen window, letting the aroma fill the quiet house. My hands were shaking slightly, not from fear but anticipation. The letter in the attic, the conversation with Henry, everything from last night had shifted something inside me. The task ahead was clear. Daniel needed to know, and I needed to navigate this delicate bridge without breaking it. When Daniel called mid-morning, I told him I needed to talk to him in person. He sounded tired, rubbing sleep from his voice, but agreed immediately. We arranged to meet at the little cafe where we had first celebrated our anniversary 20 years ago. It was a familiar place, warm and muted, filled with the kind of chairs that sat just enough to make you feel at home. Henry arrived before us, sitting quietly in a corner, hands wrapped around a cup of tea, eyes distant yet calm. He nodded when he saw me, a subtle acknowledgement of last night's unspoken bond. I felt a strange quiet pride for him. He had carried the weight of that secret through uncertainty, and here he was, present and grounded. When Daniel arrived, the cafe seemed to contract, the ambient hum of conversations fading into a low buzz. He waved, smiled, and I caught myself wanting to step forward and just hug him. But I held back, letting him settle into the booth before us. Henry's eyes met Daniel's briefly, an almost imperceptible flicker, and I realized how much courage this would take from both of them. "I need to tell you something," Henry began, his voice steady but soft. He explained the letter in the attic, how he had read it, and the fear that had made him hold back. Daniel's face shifted through confusion, hurt, and finally a quiet comprehension. It was painful watching him process it, the way grief curls around a revelation, but it was honest. No dramatics, no theatrics, just the raw, real emotion of a man understanding his brother had tried to shield him, and in doing so had built an invisible wall between them. I reached across the table and touched Daniel's hand. "Henry wasn't trying to hurt you," I said. "He was trying to protect you. And maybe he was protecting himself too. But it's here now, and the only thing we can do is face it together." Daniel exhaled slowly, eyes softening. "I get that," he said. I wish I knew sooner. But I appreciate your honesty, Henry, and yours too, Emily, for helping him speak." He squeezed my hand, and I felt the tension in my chest ease slightly. Henry added quietly, "I didn't know how else to do it, but I want to make this right. I want to be the brother I should have been without secrets." The rest of the morning passed in gentle conversation, memories resurfacing and being acknowledged for the first time. We talked about childhood mischief, about the small moments we'd forgotten about our parents and the boxes in the attic that held fragments of their lives. Each story, each laugh, each sigh was a stitch in repairing the frayed edges of our family. As we walked out of the cafe together, the sunlight warmed our faces, reflecting the subtle shift in our hearts. Henry and Daniel walked side by side, the kind of familiarity that had always been there, now unburdened by the weight of unspoken truths. I followed close, feeling an unexpected lightness. The storm of secrets, once so heavy, had passed, leaving a calm that felt like growth. Later that evening, I found myself alone on the porch, the sky painted in the soft oranges and purples of sunset. I thought about how life had a way of presenting unexpected challenges, of showing you the depth of human connection when you least expect it. Henry's honesty, Daniel's patience, the trust between us, it wasn't something that could be measured, only felt. I realized that the night of the rain, the quiet drive, and the confession had changed me. I had seen courage in a different form, not the dramatic heroics of movies, but the steady, quiet bravery of someone choosing truth over comfort, of someone trusting another with the fragile weight of their heart. And in that I found a reflection of myself, someone capable of compassion, of guiding, of holding space for the unexpected. Henry came by later to check in, and we stood on the porch together, watching the night deepen. No words were necessary. The understanding between us was palpable. He smiled, a small, knowing smile that carried gratitude and relief. And in that moment I felt the profound quiet of a connection deepened, a bond reshaped by truth and mutual respect. That night, as I prepared for bed, I thought of the journey we had taken in just 24 hours, from a stalled car in the rain to revelations that could have torn us apart to a family beginning to knit itself back together. I felt a subtle, steady warmth, the kind that comes from having faced something difficult and come through with grace. I lay in bed listening to the soft hum of the house, thinking of Henry, of Daniel, of the fragile, beautiful ways people care for each other. Life doesn't always announce the moments that change you. Sometimes it's the quiet drive through rain, the letter you never expected, and the person who trusts you enough to speak. And as I drifted to sleep, I knew that this was more than a story of secrets and revelations. It was a story of trust, courage, and the gentle power of honesty, the kind that reshapes relationships and leaves you quietly, irrevocably changed. From that day forward, our family felt different. Closer, yes, but also more human. We had touched the edges of vulnerability together and had come out stronger, more understanding, more connected. I would always remember that rainy night, that drive, and the words Henry had spoken. A simple sentence that had the power to break open hearts and heal them in the same breath.